and welcome back to the Irish Tennis Updates podcast. My name is Adam, and I'm your host. This week I'm chatting with Tristan Farron Mahon. I think this was a really fascinating chat. We get into his tennis journey and the many things that he's learned along the way. I've split this episode into two parts, and in part one today, Tristan discusses moving to the Hopman Academy, based in Florida, age 10, his junior success and his relationship with Marin Cilic, his struggles transitioning to the Pro Tour, his thoughts on US college tennis, the success that Tristan had on tour, and the keys behind that success, his career-ending shoulder injury that he suffered. And finally, this week, Tristan discusses the importance of decision-making and the role that that's had in his career and indeed in his life. I really enjoyed this chat. I think there's a huge amount to take from it. So let us get into it. Here is Tristan Farron Mahon. Tristan, firstly, just a big thanks for talking to me today. I really appreciate the time.
Hi, Adam. No, thank you. Looking forward. It's been quite a while, I think, since I've been in touch with Irish tennis. So it's good to have a catch up and have a chat with you here.
Brilliant, yeah, absolutely. Firstly, just how are things with you? I know you're based in London, so how have you been getting on the last few months?
Yeah, good. Yeah, based over in London. I've been over in London now. Coming on 7 years. I think things have been quite interesting. Quite a big change from my past life. Living over here, my wife Ipek and our young son Dylan. So obviously lockdown's been challenging in many ways, but it's been great to have the time with them, seeing him kind of grow up and develop, and still being able to work from home the whole time. So I've enjoyed, I think, the last few months.
Good, yeah, brilliant. I just want to get into your kind of tennis story, because I know you have some interesting things to touch on. But just firstly, where did that kind of begin for you? Where did you kind of get into tennis initially?
Yeah, so I grew up in Sandymount, just opposite Claremont Road Union Tennis Club, and we had quite a lot of freedom back then when I was younger. Both my parents played. I had an older brother who played, and access to the courts just across the road it became kind of a home from home. So constantly over there and kind of just hitting around and playing as much as possible. And then played my first tournament. I think I was about 6 years of age. In Donnybrook. I think it was the Donnybrook Junior Open. Played my first tournament there, and and loved it, and always quite competitive. So loved that side of it, and got involved in squads with Paul Casey up in Kilternan. Played with my dad and my mother quite a lot, and just kind of went from there. To be honest, so I think having that close access to courts made all the difference, and obviously parents that played, so. It's kind of a constant part of our life from a young age.
Yeah, brilliant. I think, as you said there, just almost being down at the club all the time and having it so local, and you spend days there. I think that's a great way to, you don't see it so much these days, but it's a great way to get into tennis and kind of get started and grow your kind of your love of the game, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think Claremont, it was a social hub. It's a community hub. It wasn't only about tennis. They have other sports there, and they used to run kids kind of discos and parties and events, and there's always something going on. And that kind of community club and social club, where you don't have to be a player, you don't have to be part of it. Just kind of creates the vibe. So you just naturally, all the kids in the neighborhood and families would kind of gravitate towards that. And it's harder and harder to find that these days. I think Dublin's very lucky compared to other countries in that sense. There are a lot of local kind of community clubs.
Yeah.
I think that was a huge part in just getting kids involved.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I know that as you kind of got a bit older, you said your first tournament was around 6. So I know you developed, and at age of 12, I believe you went off to the Hopman Academy. So obviously that's incredibly young. So how did that feel for you to go off so young and take that big step?
Yeah, it was even a little bit younger than that. I was 10 actually when I went.
Right, okay. Even younger.
Yeah, even younger. Yeah, so I went over at 10 years of age. I think I had quite a bit of success in my age category in Ireland. There's a couple of us who were playing at a good level, but I think. I was winning quite a lot, and we played a couple of kind of international tournaments and did well again, kind of, winning most of them, and decided, I think at the time, that was kind of the thing. If you were doing well, there was one or two places to go. Did you go to Florida, or did you go to Spain? My parents made the choice. They had a look around and made the choice, to bring us over and move us, as a family. So my dad stayed in Dublin to work, but the rest of us as a family moved over to Florida to the Hopman Tennis Academy in Saddlebrook, and that was it was a great experience. I mean, it was very different, being pulled out of school in Ireland, and put into an American school, which ran for half the day, and then training for the other half the day was great for my tennis. It was great to learn from all guys like Pete Sampras, was training there, and loads of top juniors and top men's and women's players, and just being around that kind of atmosphere from a young age, I think was an incredible experience. There was a culture of winning and kind of developing and growing and learning how to train properly, and I think that experience kind of set me on the road, and I had quite a lot of success immediately moving over there, and I think first tournament there was the Bollettieri, I don't know how I remember this now, but the Bollettieri Open. It was probably the biggest junior tournament in Florida at the time, and first tournament I played when I went over, and I ended up winning it, beating the number one in America at the time, 6-1, 6-2. So suddenly coaches took a bit of notice there, and I had some people kind of supporting and backing me, and got involved in really good training environment. So that was an interesting move.
A statement win to make your name over there.
Yeah, at 10 years of age, if you can count it. It's funny that I remember it now. I haven't thought about it for a long time, but that was probably my big success over there. But it was good. It was just very different. I was very excited. I was very young. Really enjoyed the experience.
Yeah, I mean, so young as you say, but I guess it would have helped having your family kind of move over, so you weren't away from them for long periods. I guess you would have had them to see on a regular basis, with made it easier to adapt to that new lifestyle, I guess. Yeah,
it's not something I'd recommend for any young player to be moving away from the family, and I think my parents recognized that, and we were in a very fortunate position that we were able to move over. Whether or not it was the right decision or not, there was a great group of guys growing up in Ireland. We had all the squads were developed at that time, and around my age group, 86, 87, 88, Irish tennis was doing very well as well. But I did go over there and with my family, and I think it was the experience of Florida for those 3 years was the right move for me, definitely, at that time. So.
Yeah, so it was 3 years you spent in the academy.
3 years in the academy in Florida, and then I got put in touch again. I had reasonable, success. I would have been, pushing the kind of the top 112s in the world. I won the warm up tournaments for kind of the Eddie Hearn and Orange Bowl, beating the guy who won both, but was injured for those. And so I had a couple of people who were kind of supporting me and interested in me at that time, at a very young age. You can't tell anything then, but I got put in touch. My mother got diagnosed with cancer again. She kind of battled cancer most of our life, and I got put in touch with a guy in Europe who you'll know very well now, a guy called Patrick Mortaglu, and he was opening up an academy in Paris. And his was under the Bob Brett name. So Bob Brett was the coach. Bob Brett was a former apprentice, of Harry Hopman, and the head coach over in Saddlebrook kind of put me forward as one of these kind of selected group of players to be part of that academy, as we did have to move back to Europe for my mother to obviously have treatment. And I was lucky enough to be picked, selected, and funded. To train in Paris, in an even more professional setup, for those 3 years, working with Bob and his coaching team, and under kind of Mortaglu's remit before he moved out on his own.
Yes.
So that was kind of how it came about.
Yeah, so back in Europe, as you went through your junior career, you did have a lot of success. Got up to 42 ITF ranking, and you played all the slams. So how do you kind of look back on your junior career then, as you moved back to Europe and kept playing?
Yeah, it was good. It was up and down. There's moments. It's a development period. As a junior player, I think you know you have to kind of focus, I think, on the right the right aspects. You have to have good mentorship, good leadership, and a good family environment. Um, and make sure that you kind of grow up in a really well-rounded sense. A lot of tennis players don't, especially a lot of individual sport athletes don't get that opportunity. I think I would look at myself as kind of mixed in that I did kind of schooling at the same time, A levels and GCSEs, but I didn't go through the full system. So focused definitely more so on the tennis side of things, and that's it's quite a risky game to play, and it's I think looking back on it, I think it's not something. Again, I think I would if I was advising someone who had a junior player who had pretty good success, I would say definitely focus on building the full ecosystem around them, making sure they're involved in schooling and education and in developing other parts of their lives, rather than just focusing solely on a specific sport, because it's a long game. Tennis, there's a long development process, and you have to make sure that person is equipped, going as they get older, to kind of handle what is a very challenging transition into kind of senior and professional tennis. So I look back with a lot of great memories of junior tennis. Really enjoyed a lot of my experiences. Playing the junior Grand Slams was amazing. I had reasonable success in kind of singles. Again, as you said, combined ranking, I think it was 42 was my highest, but to be honest, it was my doubles that pulled me up there, because in individual rankings, I was actually as high as number 2 in the world in junior doubles, but my singles probably would have been about 60, 70. So that got me up there a little bit.
Yeah.
But it was a great experience. I had a really good kind of team around me. After Paris, I moved down to Italy, to San Remo, again with Bob Brett, when he kind of split with Patrick Mortaglio, and it was just an excellent setup with a great group of players, junior and senior players, and kind of within that core group, you had guys like Marin Cilic, Sergei Bubka, myself, and then a lot of others kind of dropping in and out who be familiar names to anybody who follows tennis, and it was there was a lot to learn from these guys from a young age. There was a lot, there was something around their mentality and their work ethic, and their ability to kind of endure the challenges of tennis ups and downs, and have that long-term vision, on where they wanted to get to, and how they were going to get there, and that they showed that discipline day in and day out. So being around these guys as probably just behind them level wise, could push them on a good day, maybe get a win here and there, but definitely just a small bit behind them level wise, I think was great to be to have that opportunity, and obviously then to go on and play the junior slams, and went around in junior Wimbledon and play against some of the great players that I did play against. Something that I'll definitely never forget.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely a lot of stuff there that I could pick up on, and kind of really interesting. But you mentioned there a couple of those wins. I think you had a winning record against Jamie Murray, which now looks very good, and
Yeah.
you also, I know you had a relationship with Marin Cilic, and you played doubles with him in 2 different slams that year in 2005, and would have trained with him as well. So you kind of know him well, and maybe you also worked with him into the pro game.
Yeah. So Marin was one of Bob Brett's prodigies. He's one of the the Croatian contingent that Bob kind of brought up through Ivanisevic, Ancic, and then Cilic was the next in that line. So I've known him since we were very young. Trained with him for a long time, seen his progress, his development. I had the opportunity obviously to play doubles with him when he was a top kind of 4 or 5 junior. That year finished the year number 1 actually in 2005. Great player, great guy. Just really really smart. Really hardworking. And just a genuine, really genuine kind of guy. So he was a good friend of mine for a long time, and really enjoyed getting the opportunity to play doubles. And I was disappointed we didn't go as far as I would have liked to. I would have thought we we would have been able to do quite well. And in the slams we won the warm up for Wimbledon. We ended up playing the guys who won it in the first round, and they were just too good on the day, to be honest. But we weren't seeded because it was the combined ranking system. And I kind of brought our combined ranking a bit down. If they'd gone by doubles, we would have been seeded up there, top 4. But unfortunately, we didn't get that. So we ended up playing the guys who were actually the number 1 pairing in the world, Shabazz and Levine, and that won. I think they won 2 out of the 4, even 3 out of the 4 slams that year.
Right. Yeah.
And just come up a little bit short, but that shouldn't have happened first round, but it did. And then after that, I moved away from San Remo into kind of 2006 for a little bit, but then came back and trained with Cilic for a number of years after that, when he was working his way into the top kind of 10 in the world. And then following my injury, I got the opportunity to work as part of his coaching team in a couple of short stints in kind of 2010, 11. Again in San Remo under Bob, on the basis that I was kind of going to follow that coaching route. And so again, just it was very different. It's very different relationship when you step on court as a coach. You move from a training partner to a doubles partner to a training partner to a friend to a coach.
Yeah.
It all changes, and I kind of remember. I remember that first day on court with Cilic, where I was leading the session. I was very nervous. I wouldn't have been nervous playing with him, but I was very nervous being on court leading that session, and just doing all sorts of silly things that kind of disrupted his rhythm. And I had to have a sit down, and he had to have a talking, give me a bit of a talking to after about what he expected if I was going to be on court with him. So it was a really good experience. I really enjoyed it. And, definitely. It's good to have that to look back on.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's really, and I'm sure it was short stints, but crucial, I'm sure, to his eventual success.
Well, I won't take any credit there. Let's not.
And so as you then move in, you finish your junior days, obviously with some great success, and move into the pro game. How does that transition go for you as you start to play those pro events?
Yeah. So that was a very difficult period. To be honest, I had a number of challenges. I think I was facing at that time. Going from reasonable success into in juniors into seniors. You have to be very kind of prepared for what's coming and ready, and have a really good setup around you. And things changed quite dramatically kind of in 2005, 2006 for me. So I had obviously come out of juniors, played my last Grand Slam, the US Open, in 2005, and it was the same time that they were changing the rules in the ITF Tour around national rankings and entry into professional events. So I had a position with Tennis Ireland where I would not, they refused to allocate me a national ranking as I wasn't playing national tournaments. So the only national tournament I played was indoors that year, which I lost. I lost to Nyland in the quarters in a tight at set point in the second set. It was 2-6. It was a tight match. 18 years of age, I was even seeded, I think, 5th in the event, and I'd beaten Kluski in the early rounds, and I played Davis Cup 3 months later, but I still wasn't in a position to get a national ranking. So I travelled around from event to event, hoping to get in without this national ranking for coming on kind of almost 9 months. and I found that very, to be honest, very depressing. It was very difficult. Period where you don't, I was often entering events last minute as an alternate, going on court without any preparation, and then all the time, waiting weeks in between as just a training partner, in the middle of tournaments, hoping to get in just to play a couple of qualifying matches, and that was, that was difficult at best. It obviously wasn't ideal for my transition, but at the same time, I'd also moved coach, so so my parents, were kind of, of the belief that it would be good to when you're going, moving from juniors to seniors, it would be good to kind of build your experience and build your own structure around you as well, around funding and coordinate kind of a less cared for approach, I think, from going into, as I transitioned. So I moved coach to Germany, to Halle, to an academy there, Breakpoint, for about 10 months, on the basis that it was a lot cheaper, and then they funded coaching for that period of time. But I had to, it was a great place to train. There's a lot of good players. There's guys, I was training with Cudanelli, Victor Troicki, Andre Pavel, guys who were top 20 in the world. But I was in an environment that didn't work for me, with a coach who didn't work for me whatsoever. And I made some very poor, I think, personal decisions at that time around my kind of my approach to training, my attitude on and off court. And I think, I think when you're going through that transition period, from juniors to seniors, you need to have someone in your corner. I think actually, and Klusky touched on this in his podcast there I listened to a while back. That mentorship kind of position, someone who guides you, advises you on everything from your behavior and your training basis to your kind of your tournament schedules and just kind of some of the bounce ideas off. And I kind of lacked that, because I'd gone from that approach with Bob to this place in Germany where I was very much an outsider, and on my own. Obviously, I lived with my mother until I was kind of 17, 18, and then she was back in Dublin again for cancer treatment, and with all my siblings. So I found the transition difficult, to be honest. I perhaps, even if everything had been in place, you can look back and say, was I ready to go from juniors to seniors at 18 years of age without kind of going through the American collegiate system? And I would look back now, which is very easy to do, and say, well, no, playing college tennis in America is an incredible opportunity. It's a leveler for guys who are sometimes late developers, and it's a way to build experience for guys and who are promising but who are not at the very top, who don't have that full system and team behind them. So I think I was very much in that kind of second category of promising but needed a bit more structure around me and time to develop. And American college, I think, would have been a great experience. And I had some really good offers from Baylor and Ohio, kind of 100% scholarships from top 3, top 4 schools. And turned them down, just on the basis that felt like at the time the right decision. But retrospectively, with a bit more, a bit more kind of planning and thought to the future, it would have been quite obvious to see that my best opportunities lay in doubles. Singles, I needed time to develop physically. I was constantly carrying minor injuries. I wasn't the fittest or fastest guy on court, and relied on kind of a big serve, big forehand, and ability to kind of mix up the game a little bit. And if things fell apart, you could have struggled in any given match. So I think that would have been a really good choice for me, and it's a choice that I recommend for kind of any younger player going on. Even you see the top American juniors, even if they're top 5 in the world junior, they go to this, the college. They go through the college system at least for a couple of years, and if playing pro tennis at the same time, in their time off. It's just such a great system to to develop players. You get so many matches, you get so much experience in difficult circumstances in a team environment. We get to learn from very good coaches, very good players from all over the world, and you also get to focus on other aspects of your life, the social and educational side, which is really important to maturing and growing up, because 18 is very young, regardless of how you feel at that age. It's very young, and what I've seen it in guys like Cilic, guys who are capable of being mature beyond their years and able to think ahead, and continuously drive themselves towards the goals they want to achieve. Very few people have that, which is why very few people break through that young. So it's something that I'd recommend to anybody. The UK university system is also improving a lot in terms of the quality of the tennis. A lot of good players involved, top 400 guys now playing there, and it's definitely an approach that's probably worth considering. But I think often the player knows themselves the best, and even at 18 I knew, while playing on tour at that time was exciting, and I loved the idea of it. I still knew that I would have benefited from the college system, and perhaps I should have gone for that. But I think making those decisions yourselves, at that young, you have to be quite strong, and be quite mature to kind of turn and say, this is what I think is the best approach. So
no, it's interesting you say all about college, and how that what might be a good route, and kind of is a good route if you were to give advice. I think that makes a lot of sense. But like as it was, you found yourself on the tour at that kind of age, 18, 19. And as you said, kind of a tricky transition for you. But you did have some good success. I think you won three doubles titles on the tour. You got up to around 500 in doubles, kind of career high. So what kind of best memories do you look back on from your days playing pro tennis?
Yeah, I think my best memories start when I actually found myself as a player again, which was early 2008, end of 2007, early 2008. So the first couple of years, as I mentioned, were really tough, and really tough, mentally, and in all sorts of ways, because I wasn't sure what I was doing or what I was trying to achieve. And end of 2007, I phoned up my old coach Bob Brett again. I said, I have a decision to make. I'm either going to continue and come back and work with you. I'm going to have to stop playing, because this isn't working for me. And he invited me back down to San Remo, and we worked out an agreement for me to work with him again, which involved me spending some time on court coaching, a couple of days a week. Also working to kind of bring in new players while I was on tour into the academy. As part of that, then I got really reduced rates, and he was just really generous with me, to be honest, to allow me to continue as a player. And he had me then back on court, training with guys like Cilic, and Raonic and Polanski and all the top players. And it was the right environment under the right guidance. Again, and he started from scratch. Did a 3-month training block, and he ripped everything apart that I've been doing for a couple of years, and just built me up again. And I found myself in a position playing the tennis that I really enjoyed, which was kind of aggressive, and kind of moving into the court, working points around my serve and return, and trying to be the dominant player, and kind of built a mentality about winning, but winning on a basis that you're doing the right thing, even if you're missing or you're losing. You're always doing the right thing, making the right decisions. So you go on court and you enjoy it, and you give 100%, and you come off without any regrets, just new learnings. So that was when it kind of turned back around for me. I started to get results. Got some points very quickly. Got myself ranked very quickly. And as you said, started to make finals in doubles tournaments in 2008, couple of quarters in the futures events, and had some good wins. And and then kind of took that into 2009, but recognizing early on in 2009 that I would look to transition from singles to full-time doubles, because that's kind of where where I was at game-wise. It was best physically. It was what I enjoyed most. I loved the team side of it. I loved the camaraderie. Playing with someone and you play. You kind of balance each other out and support each other, which is something that you don't get on a singles court. So I think all my best memories are definitely on the doubles court. Just some that I really enjoyed. So started to focus on that once I got my singles ranking high enough and doubles ranking high enough to look to engage kind of good partners. And unfortunately in 2009, so I actually about a week or 2 weeks before I won the first doubles event, and I kind of made that decision actually with won the event with Colin O'Brien, who was a great Irish player and great doubles player, somebody I really enjoyed playing with. But about 2 weeks before that, I found that my mother's cancer was terminal, and that obviously kind of threw me completely, and I couldn't handle, I think, the singles aspect of that. I didn't want to be on court playing singles, I find it was a lot. It was a lot more comfortable, I think, to be on court with someone and work together. So kind of threw myself into that, and obviously had some success there. Kind of won, I think, in a space of about 6 to 8 weeks, kind of won 3 titles and I think 2 other finals. Some really good wins and always good matches, and I kind of worked towards that. Started setting up partnerships for the new year to go full-time doubles. Had a couple of good names down there that I was kind of talking to, guys like Andreas Siljeström, who we played together. We made a final and had a win in one of my last tournaments. We were talking about the opportunity to go full-time doubles, and he was doing that. He was also kind of looking around at that time, and I think about 6 months after I got injured, he was top 100. So could have been a different story, but we I kind of threw myself into that, and then unfortunately I was in the tournament in Israel, and then I was playing. So I just won my singles second round, so I had quarter singles the next day. I was playing doubles in the afternoon, and we were 4-love up in the first set, and I was serving and 40 love, and I said to my partner, it was a bit of a silly thing. I said to my partner, sometimes as you do, instead of saying T cross or standard thing, I said, oh, ace T, don't worry about it, which means that I have to go for this serve, and I tossed it a little bit too far to the left, but went in for it anyway, and ended up dislocating my shoulder in the middle of in the serve section, and kind of rupturing the bursa, damaging all the tendons around the joint, and essentially ended my career right there on the spot. Tried to play on serving underarm for a couple of games, but obviously had to retire at that point.
To come on and mention the injury, because it seems like, even though you obviously had those big personal challenges, your kind of family situation, it did seem that on the tennis court thing, things were kind of coming together for you, and you kind of, as you said, kind of you found yourself as a player again. You were having those good results, and it was at that stage that the injury came. So it really was bad timing for you.
Yeah, no, it was very tough time, and I think it was, as you mentioned, obviously personal circumstances. My mother was obviously a very important part of my life, and especially to do with tennis. She was closely involved throughout. A lot of would have been involved in Irish tennis for a long time, and kind of, I'm sure a lot of parents remember her, but sometimes with challenging circumstances as well, it gives you renewed focus, and it gives you that kind of fight or flight mode, and I kind of, at that point, I kind of chose to fight and really put my head down, and unfortunately it just these things happen. I think you harbour back, and I know I mentioned kind of decision making earlier on, and decision making at a young age, how important that is for your career later on. And I can trace my shoulder injury. It wasn't that point in Israel that caused that. It was 2006. When I was in Germany, when I was making the wrong decisions, about my training. And I wasn't I wasn't focusing on doing the right things, the things I knew were right to protect my shoulder. Wasn't disciplined enough, and I think I made that decision then. I carried an injury with me for a period of time until it went wrong, probably a bit earlier than expected. But it comes back to that, and ensuring if you want to have a successful career, in tennis, it is about making those informed decisions, being mature, thinking ahead, always working towards your dreams, what you're trying to achieve, and small slip ups, they cost you kind of down the line. I think unfortunate timing, but you have to look at it and say, okay, well, I had almost 3 years on tour, injured often, but almost 3 years full time on tour, and did I use that, time fully, and achieve what I could have achieved within those 3 years, and would I do it differently now? And the answer is quite simply that I would do it very differently now. I would do it right, and I would do it the way I wanted to. I would do it the way I did it from the end of kind of 2007, which is very disciplined, very focused, very driven, and a really professional approach, personally on and off the court, and I think it's good to know that, I think, from a young age, that especially for people in who are in the support team, for parents, for coaches, it's not about pushing the player to work hard to do things. It's pushing the player to find their own way, to support them to make the right decisions, ranging from their game, how they play, the style they play, because you're always going to play best when you enjoy how you play, and kind of on and off the court, making the right decision. Should they be involved in school and university, and letting players guide you in that sense. So I think tennis is a relatively, there's a short, it feels like a short window to make it, but it's actually longer than people realize, and it's one of those sports that if you do work hard, and if you do do all the right things, you can have very successful careers further down the line. But it's about making those right decisions at the right times, and there's so many good examples. There's so many good examples. James McGee is a perfect example. Conor Ireland, obviously James Kluski. These guys. I know I'm missing some, so forgive me. But these guys, they made the right decisions for what they wanted to achieve as tennis players. It's so unfortunate that none of them broke up under, because they all definitely, in my eyes, they definitely deserved it. But they had this great work ethics, great mindsets, great always learning, always developing, at different paces. But just really kind of admirable what they do, and that kind of mentality, we had in Irish tennis for a long time. It was great. So many good players, since Casey and Doran and Barron, through to guys like Niall and McGee and Sorensen and many more, having that, those examples around you and learning from them is an opportunity that I appreciated as well, definitely. But it was great to be a part of that. But you can see kind of who how people how successful people were based on those little decisions, and that's what it comes down to, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, you've mentioned this kind of idea of decision making and the importance of those decisions kind of a few times now, and kind of a few times that it came up in your journey. And then you said there kind of how you see differences in how the likes of Nyland or McGee would have made those kind of decisions. So if you were to sum up this idea of decision making, and what maybe advice you could extract from your experiences or what you've seen from others, well, how would you kind of sum up this idea of decision making and its importance?
It's a little bit different for everybody. I think the key thing, the key similarity, that when you look across it, is that all these guys were, they're very well-rounded individuals. They're very, very driven and very focused, and they're, but they and that's primarily, I don't want to I don't think, they're not selfish in any way, so that's not the right word. But they always make the right decision for themselves going forward. So whether that is, choosing whether or not to have a beer on a night out, they wouldn't cave into any kind of peer pressure, or whether it's, where they train and who they train with, how they respond to difficult situations. There'd always be that calmness and that forethought within that. So and that the mentality, that there's no loss. That the only time you actually have a loss is when you don't learn from it, and just constantly learning and growing, on the basis that that they have this vision in mind. They see where they want to be in the future. They know what they want to achieve, and they have that kind of single-mindedness to keep going for it. And I have a huge amount of admiration for what they achieved. All of these guys, because it's an extremely tough sport. It's an extremely demanding sport. When it comes down to it, the only person who's going to decide, who's going to decide whether or not you're successful is yourself. Because you can have everything, around you. You can have, the best support, the best coaching, the best setup, all the funding in the world. But when it comes down to it, it'll be the player who makes it or doesn't make it. And that's something that everybody should be aware of from a young age.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting. It's great to kind of hear you go through that. And I think there's a lot that people can take from that, just in their own journeys, and they can take a lot from that, I think, and it's really, really great stuff to talk about. And that is where we will leave part 1. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, please do join myself and Tristan again next week to catch part 2, when Tristan will talk about his experiences playing Davis Cup, his thesis on tennis, the changes that he thinks still need to be made in the professional tennis structures, his current job and how tennis has helped him within that role, and more. Until then, please subscribe to the show, leave a review, a comment, share with somebody else you think might be interested, and have a great week. Until then, I've been Adam. Thank you and goodbye.